Chapter 4 The Fateful Meeting. The forest at dawn was a place of hushed whispers and dappled light, the rising sun casting long beams through the ancient trees. Ava's breath clouded in the crisp air as she walked deeper into the woods, clutching the tome tightly against her chest. The whispers from the book had subsided, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to envelop everything around her. Yet she felt it, a pull, an instinct, guiding her forward. Her sneakers crunched against the carpet of fallen leaves and twigs, the only sound breaking the stillness. The deeper she ventured, the more alien the forest became. The trees grew larger, their roots twisting out of the ground like ancient gnarled hands. The air smelled sharper here, filled with the earthy tang of moss and something faintly metallic. It wasn't just a forest anymore. It was a threshold to something otherworldly. The tome in her arms grew heavier with each step, its glyphs faintly pulsing beneath her fingers. Ava tightened her grip. Whatever answers it held, she would find them. She had to. A sudden rustling to her left stopped her in her tracks. She froze, her heart pounding as her eyes scanned the shadows between the trees. The forest held its breath, the stillness now oppressive. Slowly she backed away, her fingers brushing against the edge of her bag. Then he emerged. The figure stepped out of the shadows with a quiet grace that made Ava's breath catch. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his movements fluid and predatory, his piercing gaze locked onto hers, golden eyes that seemed to gleam even in the dim light. He wasn't human, not entirely. The air around him thrummed with power, and Ava instinctively took a step back. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound firm. The man regarded her silently for a moment, his expression unreadable. His dark hair fell across his forehead, framing sharp, angular features. His presence was overwhelming, like the forest itself had shaped him from its roots and shadows. "You have the tome," he said finally, his voice low and steady. It wasn't a question. Ava tightened her grip on the book. "What do you want with it?" His gaze flicked to the tome in her arms, then back to her face. "It's not what I want. It's what you've already set in motion." Her stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, and though his movements were slow, they carried an unspoken authority that made her pulse quicken. Ava fought the urge to retreat. "The tome chose you," he said, "but its power comes with a cost, one you may not be ready to pay." Ava's breath hitched. The words felt like a confirmation of her deepest fears. She shook her head, her voice rising. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just want to understand what's happening to me." The man's eyes softened just barely. "Then you're already on the right path." A distant howl broke through the stillness, sharp and mournful. Ava flinched, her instincts screaming at her to run. The man tensed, his gaze snapping to the trees behind her. "They're coming," he said, his voice clipped. "If you want answers, follow me, now." "Wait. Who's coming?" Ava's mind raced, her body frozen in place. The howl echoed again, closer this time, and it carried with it a strange, unnatural edge that made her skin crawl. "No time," he growled, stepping toward her and grabbing her arm. His touch was firm but not unkind. "Trust me, or stay here and find out for yourself." The urgency in his voice pushed her into motion. Ava let herself be pulled along, the tome pressed tightly against her chest as they plunged deeper into the forest. The trees blurred around them, the ground uneven beneath her feet. She stumbled, but the man's grip kept her steady. "What are those things?" she panted, struggling to keep up. "Corrupted wolves," he replied without looking back. "Twisted by the darkness. They'll tear you apart if they catch you." Ava's stomach churned, her fear spiking as the howls grew louder. She couldn't see them yet, but she could feel them. A malevolent presence closing in, heavy and suffocating. The man suddenly stopped, his hand tightening on her arm to steady her. "Stay close," he commanded, "and don't make a sound." They crouched behind the roots of a massive tree, its gnarled bark offering some semblance of cover. Ava's breaths came in shallow gasps as she pressed herself against the rough surface, her heart pounding in her ears. The first wolf emerged from the shadows moments later. It was massive, its fur matted and blackened as if scorched. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and its movements were jerky, unnatural. A low growl rumbled from its throat, sending a shiver down Ava's spine. The man shifted slightly, placing himself between Ava and the creature. His golden eyes narrowed, and for a moment Ava thought she saw something shimmer around him, a faint aura of light, subtle but powerful. The corrupted wolf sniffed the air, its head snapping in their direction. Ava bit back a gasp, clutching the tome tighter as her panic threatened to consume her. Before the creature could lunge, the man moved. He was a blur of motion, faster than her eyes could track. A feral snarl escaped his lips as he collided with the wolf, the impact sending a shockwave through the clearing. Ava watched in stunned silence as the fight unfolded, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The man fought with a primal ferocity, his movements fluid and devastating. The corrupted wolf was strong, but he was stronger, and within moments it lay motionless on the ground. He turned back to her, his chest heaving. "We need to keep moving. There will be more." Ava nodded, her legs trembling as she pushed herself to her feet. She followed him without a word, her fear mingling with a strange sense of awe. Whoever he was, whatever he was, he had just saved her life, and for now, that was enough.